Colleagues, good evening.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening.
Very well, very well. How's you are smartly dressed tonight?
Hey, like a prince, eh?
Absolutely. I wanted to ask, what's going on? Are you now part of the royal family?
Yes. I've actually joined the royalty.
Yeah, no, I'm very impressed.
Oh, no, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I wonder what your son will say.
I know he really wants us to swap roles. Unfortunately, we're not going to do that. I know he wants to be a prince himself.
No, I'm very impressed. Very impressed.
Thank you so much. May I just check if Pat, if you may please beam the flight, the agenda for today.
Good evening, Chair.
Good evening. Hi, hey, Kenny.
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir?
No, I'm okay, Chair.
I'm very good. It's been a while, eh? I think
yes.
We last met in Durban when we were
recording in progress.
Yeah,
yes, we're in Durban.
Yes, correct. No, colleagues, you are all welcome. And let me just want to look at the agenda before we start. All right, colleagues, this is the agenda. Can you raise it for tonight? Yes, it's after the preliminaries. It's a briefing by the Deputy Chairperson of the National Conventional Arms Control Committee, NCACC, on the 2021, first quarter report. An update by the NCACC on all ongoing investigation related to suspected contravention of end user certificates and or the NCACC Act, application backlog, total and value, and knock-on effect on the defense industry, etc. And then progress on the proposed amendment of the NCACC. And lastly, it will be comments and questions from the honorable members, which will be followed by the responses. After all that, then we consider and adopt our third term program. And if we still have time, we'll then consider and adopt the minutes. Colleagues, this is the agenda for today. I know that these issues might not have been put out for adoption because we are yet to adopt the program of the third term. And may I just check if members are happy with the agenda as it is presented? And yes, Mr. Murray.
I've got no problem with the items on the agenda. I think that is fine. I just wanted to make sure I have sent you, both of you, the two co-chairs, a note with regards to the Secretary of Defense. I think we've got a responsibility to her, and she's got a responsibility to us in terms of what has been, in the media lately about what the State Security Agency has said about investigations and then about her security clearance. I see in today's media that the Department of Defense and the Minister is now also, requesting information. So it seems like it's very valid for us. So I just wanted to make sure, what your thoughts on that is, and whether we must consider it in the portfolio committee, or whether we must, it is a joint standing committee on defense matter for us to have a look on. on that?
I don't know. You see, I don't know. Let's deal with it at the portfolio committee level. But let's check first whether I don't know if the minister is looking at it. Let me look at the matter. I'm sorry I've not come back to you. It's not customary that I don't come back to you. My apologies. Let me look at that and then I will advise accordingly.
Okay, because surely it will have a serious impact on her role as Secretary of Defense and Accounting Officer as well, if there's a problem with her security clearance.
Yes, no, it's fine. We will look at that. And I hope the minister has also looked at it as well. So, okay, no, it's fine. Let me just check how we, process it. I will then let you know. Thank you so much. All right.
Okay. Otherwise, besides that, I've got no problem, and I will propose for the acceptance of the agenda.
Thank you so much for your proposal, Mr. Mare. Let me just check. Is there any seconder?
I second, Honorable Chair.
That is seconded. Oh, thank you so much. Right. Pat, but are we correct, Pat? Do you have the quorum?
Yes, Chair, you do.
Then we are in
The
order.
memorial videos for us last time. Or was it before you?
Mado Sephora, your cell phone, please can you mute? Right. Thank you so much, colleagues. Right. Pat, I don't know who is here representing the NCACC.
I saw the Minister of the Minister of Justice's PLO logged in. So I'm not sure if maybe he had logged in on behalf of Minister Lamola.
All right. Let me just establish if the minister is Minister Lamola. Are you on the platform?
Chair, I am on the platform. This is Advocate Jele.
Yes, Advocate Jele. Advocate, how are you?
I'm okay, yourself, sir.
I'm very good. Thank you so much and welcome. And okay, you'll just introduce who is on the platform representing the NCACC.
I am the one who is representing the committee because as per
you have an unstable
confirmed.
You have an unstable connection.
The committee had indicated that if it is quarterly reports, hello?
Yes. You see, you have an unstable connection. Can you just go ahead? I thought I should just let you know. Hello, are you still? Oh, okay. That was a way of saying goodbye to us.
Is that number, that chairperson that he was speaking from, 75001446, is still on the platform, but it's muted.
Yeah, it looks like a prison number.
What? A prison number?
I am unmuted, Chair.
All right. No, thank you so much. So yes, you were saying that I think you are right. That we said if it is a quarterly report,
yes,
it's fine having you presenting on it, and but of course there will be instances where we ask the minister to be present in the meeting together with you, and but for annual reports, surely we expect that there be a full delegation led by the minister, the minister responsible. Has the president appointed the chair of the NCACC yet?
No, not as yet, the chair and the committee. However, the paperwork thereof has been lodged at the presidency, including the appointment of the new members of the executive, those who went into cabinet, who now must also be appointed into the NCACC as per the requirement in terms of the law. They would be appointed, and so appointed, the presidents would also publish their names in the government gazette.
Oh, no, I understand that process. That some members are yet to some ministers who by law qualify for appointment to the NCACC are yet to be formally appointed. Okay, all right. All right, no, it's fine. So, okay, so what we'll do, if there's any question, for instance, that for whatever reason requires the attention of the minister or the chair of the NCACC or any members of the NCACC, will then escalate that to them. And but let's see how it progresses. Colleagues, I just want to start. Yes,
if I may, I have got no problem with the arrangement for the quarterly report. However, when we see that there are additional things like we have tonight on the agenda, obviously, there must be then, people must look at that and say, this is kind of very important for kind of political. So we actually need them, at least the chairperson or the minister responsible for NCACC in this meeting as well.
If it goes beyond just a quarterly report.
Exactly.
Exactly. I will arrange that myself. I will ensure that when we have extra items, that there is the chair and other members of the board present, of the NCACC present. Okay. No, thank you so much. I will do that.
Please. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Colleagues, look, I thought I should just do a recap in brief. The National Conventional Arms Control Committee, NCACC, plays an important role in the promotion of South Africa as a responsible producer and trader in defense-related products. This is ensured through the NCACC Act, Act number 41 of 2002, that aims to ensure a legitimate, effective, and transparent control process that would foster national and international confidence in South Africa's arms control procedures. To add to transparency, the NCACC Act makes specific provision for parliamentary oversight, including quarterly reporting to Parliament. In the 6th Parliament, the Joint Standing Committee on Defense has consistently reviewed the activities of the NCACC as well as related problems. Key issues reviewed by the committee included the following. 1, in 2020, the committee held several meetings on the effect of end user certificate requirements on South African defense companies' ability to export. And this has been addressed through the amendment of the NCACC regulations. 2, during a meeting on the 5th November 2020, the committee noted slow progress with the finalization of a digital export permit processing system by the NCACC. Thirdly, number 3, during the same year, the committee engaged local defense industry role players and was informed of frustrations on the slow NCACC approval process. 4, on the 25th June 2020, the committee noted media queries related to allegations that some exported weapons might have ended up in conflict zones. The committee took comfort in the fact that there was no evidence to support the allegations in that the South African defense industry or South Africa acted inappropriately. The review of quarterly NCACC reports provides another opportunity to unpack the issues previously raised by the committee. Today's meeting on export and imports should advise the committee on the NCACC progress to assist the South African defense industry. However, the committee also assists in ensuring a transparent and responsible export environment. Therefore, today's meeting will also require the NCACC to report on its ongoing investigations against the companies who allegedly export weapons to conflict zones. Oversight of these two aspects will allow the committee to ensure a properly supported defense industry that aligns itself with the international requirement for the arms trade. So having said those, let me now invite the Advocate Jele to take us through the first item. Just before I do that, are there any apologies, suspect, on the side of the committee?
Yes, Mr. Shelembe, Chair.
Shelembe has apologized.
Yes.
And thank you very much. And Advocate Jele, are there any apologies on your side?
It is actually the chair or acting chairperson who actually said I should tender his apology. As was expected, would have been the one leading this. But other than that, there are none.
There are none. Okay. No, thank you very much. I now invite you to take us through the first item on the agenda. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair or joint chairs and the whole committee. I hope to be able to share with you aspects that are in the agenda that are also important for the proceedings today. I, however, will be guided by yourselves as to whether I'm still on point when I do what I do. And in that case, then I'd appreciate you pointing out that perhaps I've missed here points here and there. Committee, in the past, you indicated that you perhaps would not wish that we go through the whole presentation that shows the constitution of the...
Sorry, is it possible to set your video on because the whole thing might be captured live?
Oh, I thought with video, that's when it actually makes the thing to be unstable, but let me see.
Let's try and see how it goes. If it continues to be stable, then we'll advise that you come off, you turn your video on. All right?
Am I visible now?
Yes, you are visible and you have turned gray.
Yeah, my days are numbered. So okay. May I proceed?
Yes, sir, you may proceed.
Okay, if it is then agreeable, yes, you can fly the presentation. Next slide, please. We have covered this committee. I'm not too sure if I should say anything other than indicating that the report, which is the quarter one, has been tabled in Parliament, hence, in line with the Act, we are actually presenting it to yourselves. Next slide, please. I included this committee just in case there are new members. I think I take note that we have a new Minister of Defense. who is not new to NCACC matters, because whenever we're tabling reports of the NCACC, it was through the Speaker of the National Assembly as well as the Chair of the NCOP. But perhaps there are also new members. This is just an indication of what actually guides conventional arms control internationally. And South Africa is a party to these treaties as well as some of the conventions. Next slide, please. And as indicated by your summing up at the beginning, Chair, these are the primary regulations or acts that actually regulate what we do, including the aspect that we may cover, which is the regulation of foreign military assistance. This is in light of what was mentioned in the last encounter we had on violations or likely violations of the Act in Mozambique. The next slide, please. You asked me earlier on whether the chair or the vacancy of the chair has been finalized. I indicated, Chair, that paperwork has actually been taken through to the presidency in order to cover this aspect, but this is an indication as to why or how members of the executive actually get appointed, and upon that, it also indicates how they would also lose or forfeit being on the committee on the basis of either them being removed or in this case, or in any case where a member would actually decide to resign. Next slide, please. For the reporting period, Chair, this is how the committee was constituted. In other words, it comprised of the following of the members as indicated there, while we are quite aware that as we speak today, some of the members have actually moved to other portfolios. Next slide, please. This is an indication of the tiers of the processing and management of the work of the NCACC, where at the top it is NCACC, which actually meets on the last Thursday of each month to consider applications that have had to go through a scrutiny committee that would have been chaired 2 weeks earlier by the Secretary for Defense, in this case, Ambassador Kujo, wherein at the scrutiny we have the DOD, DERCO, and the DTI, SAPS, and State Security Agency in its previous configuration, and defense intelligence being represented. Next slide, please. We've covered this aspect through you, Chair, earlier on when we indicated the oversight role of the committee and the need for us to actually comply with that. We can move to the next slide, please. Just as a refresher, Chair and committee members, Section 15 is a critical section of the Act, in that it actually gives us the criteria and the principles that are actually applied by the committee when they actually have to consider applications and also approve or authorize these transfers. Key in point is the country that is receiving or likely going to receive South African products, that is material, needs not to be listed by the Security Council of the UN, wherein there is an arms embargo against them. If that is the case, the committee would not approve or authorize such transfers. But as part of looking at an evaluation of all applications, Section 15 then also covers aspects in relation to how is the governance of that country that is likely going to receive the material, meaning their politics, their human rights record, etc. And we also look at the regional dynamics in terms of, is this going to contribute to stability in the region or instability in the region? And that is a key consideration. and also to evaluate what is the risk of diversion, wherein, if I were to use the example of the allegation of what happened is, for instance, Mozambique, is the authorization that NCACC does, it does on behalf of the government of South Africa. So transfers are essentially between governments. And they're actually meant to exclude non-state actors, because that is key and critical. However, in instances where there is therefore indications that can be proven where a state actor accepts what South Africa authorizes and transfers to them, but they then give that to non-state actors within their control, that would be a serious and a clear violation of the Act. So far, we haven't actually had anything that proves that, other than the allegations that I think the committee is well aware of. We do monitor that and expect our intelligence agencies to provide us with information that indicate anything that is concerning in that regard. And the last point then is to look at South Africa's national interest with the authorization of these transfers, whether it actually improves our security or weakens it, our political standing, as well as our economic benefits. Next slide, please. I then move quickly through your permission, Chair, into the 2021 Q1 report. In this quarter, we had 36 applications for registration certificate considered and issued. And then there were 5 marketing permits that were actually issued. And the contracting permits were 40 applications. None were denied for Q1. And these we had a sum value or round value of 42.7 billion rands. And this is actually to 28 countries. And the export correspondingly were 133 applications that were approved or authorized. And the value of these exports was 600 million rands, and the exportation was authorized to 30 countries. Next slide, please. The imports, which is where South Africa actually gets material or components or parts in order to use them internally for her own defensive needs, had about 63 permits or applicants who got the approval, and the value of those permits was about 6.7 million rands. And these were coming from 19 countries. We did not have any conveyance permit. And members should also remember that the conveyance permit is always considered and issued for countries that are landlocked, but who use South African ports in order to access their own products. And there was an improvement in the regulations that we then had to look at dual use exportation. And that's why you've got a second column now of exports. And these were 14 of those were authorized, and they had a total value of about 30.8 million rands. And this was to actually 6 countries. Next slide, please. As a matter of comparison, committee, in 2020 Q1, there were 2 registrations as opposed to 36 for 2021 year on year. And there were 2 marketing permits as opposed to 5, that was year on year 2021. And the permits that were contracted or authorized for contracting were 20 in 2020, but were 40 in 2021. Correspondingly, there were no denials. And in 2020, the value of contracts that authorized was about 7 billion as compared to 42.7 in 2021. So it's actually a very encouraging number in terms of authorizations. And this was, the 2020 figures were based on 17 countries that we contracted with, as opposed to 28 for 2021. And the exports then were 137 in 2020, as opposed to 133 in 2021. So essentially, there was a lower figure for 2021 quarter one, year on year. However, the value of the permits that were authorized in 2020 was about 507 million, 500.7 million rands, as opposed to 2021, that is 600.1 million rands. So the figure is stronger in 2021 as opposed to 2020. And this was actually exportation to 30 countries, which is lesser countries, but the value is higher, but based on lesser authorizations in terms of exports. Next slide, please. And the imports then correspondingly were 97 in 2020 as compared to 63 in 2021. So the 2020 figure was higher. However, the value of the imports in 2020 was 1.1 billion as opposed to 6.7 in 2021. So the 2021 figure is stronger as compared to 2020 year on year. And the total countries from which importations were made for 2020 was 24 as opposed to 19. And again, there were no conveyance permits, and the exports for dual use then was 8 in 2020, but 14 in 2021. And the value then in 2020 was 1.7 billion as compared to 30.8 in 2021, which is a higher value. But the exportations remain the same. It's 6 and 6 correspondingly for the same period year on year. Next slide, please. If one then looks at the pie chart, the representation indicates that for 2020, you actually had about 4.6% of the total exports as compared to 5.4. So if you extrapolate that into percentages, it is essentially a 46-54 split for a favorable 2021 as compared to 2020. The differential then becomes 8% year on year. We used the export values only committee because those are the realistic figure that we can actually base these comparisons. Everything else is, for instance, in the case of contracting permits, it is the value of authorizations, but it still means companies must still go into production to manufacture and eventually come and apply in order to then be able to export. That is why we then base this comparison on essentially what has been authorized to be exported. And essentially that is what would have been exported. Now, the committee raised matters that were actually flowing from the previous term, where there were matters that had to be attended to. The first one being the amendment of the Act. I had indicated committee in the past that normally an Act of Parliament needs a review almost with a 7-year horizon. We are currently almost beyond 10 years in that the last amendment was 2012. The amendment started in 2010, but it was actually finalized in 2012. So we're working hard at ensuring that we can also complete this with the shortest period, notwithstanding that there is Corona and other challenges that are actually out there. But essentially what the amendments are going to entail would be the text itself, but also the tables and the lists that are attendant to the Act. When I mention the lists, the committee members would probably remember that how the framework of the Act is, or the regulation is, it is the Act, the regulations, as well as the lists for control, which we derive from the Wassenaar arrangement list. And I think the committee must have been told in the past that we still are on 2010 Wassenaar, whereas other countries are probably on 2016. But it is actually correct and useful for our country to still remain on 2010. And the reason is the type of products that are actually produced, which mostly are munitions listed, favor us in essence, because if you move to higher levels of controls, the likelihood is that you will strangle the industry by having a higher threshold in terms of control. An indication of what entails such amendments would, for instance, mean we've got to look at ground equipment for military aircraft and look at the threshold of control there. We'll look at hard body and armor plates to then decide what would then be the acceptable level of control. Things like steel helmets and add-on ballistic protection. And also in aspects where there is the establishment of test facilities, we then look at the controls in terms of also certification of those facilities and other aspects that are in relation to those controls. When from the international arena, there are developments in relation to some of the controlled items, we then have to look internally to say, what is the desirability, what is the feasibility of controlling when it comes to our own industry? For instance, issues like chemical warfare agents, radio frequency jammers for UAVs, things such as military ground vehicles, etc. I will not belabor the point. I think it's also just important to indicate that in June of each year, there's always a technical working group that meets in Austria, in Vienna, to consider these amendments, and that's where then discussions also take place, including negotiations on what the control thresholds are. When the technical working group is finished with that, they then compile proposals, which are then floated to members, and South Africa, being a member, also receives those proposals. And now in the middle of September, there will then be a group of governmental experts meeting that would then go and meet and look at these proposals as would have been worked out through by the technical working group that would have met in that same year, but in June. So I am awaiting the necessary approvals in order to be able to attend that, because I normally attend that annually, with the exception of last year because of Corona. That is essentially how far the amendments are likely going to go. Committee, it is important that whenever the text, the tables, and the lists are actually therefore finalized in draft, that are then actually circulated, and consultations are also held publicly as is required for any piece of legislation, that those that are going to be impacted by such amendments also make comments and all that, after which we then begin the first, the second readings, as is like normal for parliamentary processes, in order to then have the amendments go through the legislature. The other part of discussion that the committee is interested in was the violation of end user certificates. The committee would recall that this came as a result of what was claimed to be happening in Mozambique and especially in Cabo Delgado, which is the northern part of Mozambique. After numerous reports that were in newspapers, I can report to the committee that nothing has come forth that is actually bearing out the veracity of these violations. So, contrary to where it was reported that it could be South African entities that are registered under the Act that actually violate this, we don't actually have anything other than the allegation that a group of a company called Van Dyke are the ones who were contracted by the government of Mozambique to actually work there. But from our agencies, we have not received anything that indicates that that is the case. However, it is important to state the concern that the committee actually has, where if this were to be true, it would signify a serious violation of end user undertakings. This is where a state party receives material, but then gives it to third parties or non-state actors. I think that is up to so far that I can leave the matter when it comes to the violation of end user certificates. Now, on the matter of the IT, which was a concern as well to the committee, I can report, I think that the IT project is continuing apace. Both the old and the new systems are now live. We are in the test phase, which is called user acceptance testing. And following this phase, there'll be training of users. I can report that training of the users will start at the end of week 1 of September. We are in discussions with the service providers that while both systems are live, that we should continue to keep the old system longer being live before archiving it, after which we then would switch it off. This would enable that all the necessary debugging that must happen and other gremlins that may creep up in the new system, including teething problems of the new system, are actually ironed out. I think key to indicate to yourselves, committee, is that some equipment was bought in 2015, which is almost 6 years ago for this system. And in that case, all that equipment is essentially out of warranty. So in instances where these now must actually be either replaced or repaired and all that, there is a likelihood of money or requirements or costs that are actually going to be incurred. Because we have had brand new laptops that are actually having batteries that are actually failing. In other words, the laptop can only work for as long as it's in the charger. But actually, if you take it out of the charger, it quickly activates the battery strength. It decelerates and it's creating problems. So I will raise this again with the SecDev and see how best we can actually be assisted in this regard. Because the IT system is also a closed loop system, it means that all entities that are actually in the scrutiny committee also have got laptops that would be given to them in order to access the system, but actually being based in their respective agencies and also departments. And that could also then be another small outlay where configuration of our system side by side with the configuration in those department systems may entail some cost adjustments here and there. The committee requested that there should be also an update and a briefing on outstanding matters that are in relation to NCACC meetings. I can report committee that there are no outstanding committee meetings, with the exception of the meeting that would have been held today. but that is actually going to be held next Thursday due to reasons that we could not actually complete and formulate a quorum. And that is actually necessary or required in law for us to be correct. But there is nothing else other than this meeting where we could say there are outstanding meetings. However, there are issues that committee should know, and that is Saudi Arabia and the UAE still remain problematic. The committee took a cautionary approach to authorization of applications by our industry to these countries, where the committee authorizes categories C and up to G, but still holds back category A and B, because those are the lethal, most lethal and lethal items. And what informs the committee is the concerns that are actually being raised, number one, on the role of these countries in Yemen. As a result, the committee then will be interested to know what is then the backlog for these applications. I think I can safely say for the United Arab Emirates, that is just about 3 billion rands. And for Saudi Arabia, it's about 700 million rands. But the committee is not holding these back and not doing anything. There are engagements currently to have this matter discussed extensively in cabinet in order to also get guidance from cabinet such that this could then be managed effectively and also remove the stranglehold on the defense industry. At the last time when we met the committee, this matter had not arisen. The matter of litigation against the NCACC by two entities here in South Africa called Open Secrets and Lawyers for Human Rights, based on the role of Saudi Arabia and the UAE in Yemen. Just for a short background, Open Secrets had placed the NCACC on a prior requirement to access information in relation to authorizations to these countries. This stretches as far back as June last year. And I can report that we effectively managed this matter with the late chairperson, Minister Mthembu. However, they were still not satisfied. And I think upon the release of the Amnesty International reports, they then found that the criticism that was leveled at Saudi Arabia and the UAE, respectively, including citation that South Africa is among other countries that are supplying material to these countries, that perhaps there are grounds for them to launch a legal matter. So litigation then ensued where at first they wanted the names of the companies that actually own permits that enable them to export to these countries. The committee resisted supplying those names due to terms and conditions of contracting, as well as other secrets that are pertinent for this type of trade. The committee pointed out that the Open Secrets in particular had actually not made a case for these names. But the committee was also convinced that there is no need to create a joinder in law, in other words, for litigation, where the permit holders would be seen or deemed to have actually had permits that are not valid or illegitimate. It was pointed out then through correspondence with Open Secrets that the NCACC is the regulator on behalf of South Africa. In the event that there is a court decision that instructs the committee to revoke the permits that are in the hands of such applicants or permit holders, those permits would with immediate effect be revoked. Unless the NCACC litigates further to defend that position, which would actually be a correct position, and ultimately ends up to the apex court where such matters then would be ventilated. However, I have to point out that Open Secrets and the Lawyers for Human Rights split this matter into two. Their part A was meant to say, provide us with the names of permit holders so that we can add them as a joinder. Because the first defendant was cited as Minister Lamula or chair of the NCACC. And the second respondent was Minister of Defense, at the time being Minister Mapisa Mapula. But without the names, they could therefore not create a joinder. However, because the matter went to court and was not opposed in time, there was therefore then a default judgment granted against the NCACC, where the NCACC was now forced to comply with the draft order to produce that name list, regardless of the permit holders having those permits issued legitimately and honorably by the NCACC. But that is essentially in compliance with the draft order. But matters are appeased now, where the very same decision is actually being challenged, and we actually have the State Attorney's Office assisting us, and there is also a senior counsel who's been appointed as regards this matter. What the draft order required, other than the list, was to actually have the record of proceedings also produced. When one reads the Amnesty International report as well as the Open Secrets report, they clearly admit that they have no proof that South African material that went to Saudi Arabia and the UAE is actually being used in Yemen, because South Africa is not the only supplier to that entity. However, because the matter was not ventilated in court as far as essentially part one, it is now going to be engaged or dealt with when litigation assumes and the part two starts. And this is where the applicants would seek through court to revoke the applications that are issued by the NCACC and which are actually in the hands of the permit holders. I think as far as that is concerned, a committee, a chair and committee members, that is an ongoing matter. The committee is seized with that matter. And it is important that the NCACC does not relent, because the whole authority of the NCACC to actually do the work it does rests on compliance with the Act. And I can testify that none of the permit holders have those permits that were issued in an illegitimate manner. It stands to be argued in court for that to actually have or suffer the risk of non-persuasion, as we would say in law. I think that is up to how far I can go as far as these matters are concerned. And I think up to there, I shall then pause, Chair, and await further engagements from his side.
No, thank you very much, Advocate. Very detailed presentation. I'm sure with all the facts that members need to know as the oversight body of Parliament. Colleagues, I'm sure you are grateful to the presentation tonight. Quite a departure from the presentations that have been made to us. we really welcome that. I think we are making progress, because it's transparency that will, enable the committee to be effective in its oversight function. Right? I'm now looking on the board. So we have one hand on the board. Colleagues, maybe let me do this before. You see, if I've not opened up the platform for questions and comments, I don't consult the board where you raise the hands. Maybe I'm concentrating on the presentation, or I'm doing a bit of research, and to prepare myself for discussion. So in that instance, I invite you to just call for my attention, because I don't look on the board all the time. There's just no time to do that. Right? I'm now on the board. I see Mr. Mare, I see Mr. Ryder. Who else do I see? So those are the two colleagues that I'm seeing. Yeah, there's my colleague as well, Mr. Chabeling. All right. But just before I take you, Mr. Mare, let me just take Mr. Chabeling, and then I will come back to Mr. Mare and Mr. Wright. Mr. Chabeling, co-chair.
Oh, yes, Chairperson, I had a lapse in terms of reception. So I missed quite a lot in the presentation, but, towards the end, I picked something. There is this thing about remember we raised issues with the end user permits, that many countries are having challenges with this end user permits, because they feel that they are being monitored, and as a result are reluctant to deal with us, and that some countries have abandoned this end user certificate thing. What's the update with it? And the other matter that I've seen on the notes is that we lost a case because we did not represent ourselves, something like that. I think it's matters to do with the Middle East or something. I just saw that slide towards the end, and otherwise I'm back in the meeting, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Co-Chair. Thank you so much. Mr. Mare, Raider.
Thank you very much, Chair. Much appreciated, Advocate, for your presentation. You must just bear with me at the moment, because this is now a presentation over 2 or 3 agenda points. So there might be quite a lot of questions, and maybe questions for clarity as well. I will start with the last part around all the legal issues, and I want to support Mr. Chabeling to ask, how is it possible that the NCACC did not oppose that application? Because what has actually happened as a result of that is that those information that you're not even prepared to give to us as a committee, and that's names and details of transactions, that was in effect now given to Open Secrets and Amnesty International. And I am aware of Open Secrets lawyers who has now written to some of those members whose names and details have been disclosed, and also the details of transactions. So that seems to be a major issue. And I'm not only thinking of the individual companies who's doing exports, but there might be serious intelligence information that can expose South Africa to whoever is now knowing what has been produced by who's got what capacity, and they can start to to start with a total different onslaught onto South Africa, and they can even plan for all their illegal and wrongdoings, whatever they want to do. So I want to really, Advocate, ask that you give us some more details on that. Whoever has decided not to oppose that application, and if it was a human error, what have you done to whoever was supposed to do that and got that default judgment against you? I mean, that is, for an organization like yours, with all these billions of rands of very strategic defense material, to have a slip up like that is, I want to say, is inexcusable. I mean, I don't think if I ask you the information, you will provide me the information, but now it sits in an organization like Open Secrets and Amnesty International, and they've got their own agendas, which is not necessarily in favor of our defense industry. So that is a serious problem that I've got. And obviously, like the minister has said yesterday with regards to other stuff, are heads rolling or not? Or what has happened to those people who have basically then neglected their work in that regard? Because that's a serious thing. And I hope that you don't take it lightly and that you will disclose that with us. Then I also want to know from you, if my information is correct, there was a investigation done some time ago with regards to both Saudi and the UAE, and that it was actually found that there's no indication that the UAE is involved anymore in Yemen, and that there's no reason why any exports to UAE must follow suit the same as with Saudi Arabia. We also sit with Turkey, where I believe that there are permits been issued, but obviously, and I refer now, it's most probably those A and B category of munition, which is, in my opinion, probably the highest value of our exports. So those seems to be revoked since the beginning of this year. So my information is that none of those companies can export anything to Turkey, to the UAE, and to Saudi Arabia. Nothing. And my information is, at this stage, the buyers in those three countries are so unhappy that they've already started negotiations with companies in China to replace South Africa as the suppliers of those munitions. Now, I don't think that is something that we can afford. Then we can just as well close the door of the defense industry in South Africa. So and that is, I also want to know from you, sir, whether there was, like you say there are no meetings behind. So in other words, you have had an NCACC meeting every single month where you considered applications and where you granted those permits. My information is that there is some of the industry players that are very unhappy, because since February, none of their applications have been considered. So in other words, to sit in nearly a whole year with no shipments, and in one or two cases, trucks were on the road towards the harbor, and they had to turn around the trucks, and they had to pay for ships $200,000 because the ship was waiting for the load, and because of the revokement of the permits, those companies have lost that money. So those are serious things, and how do we deal with that? I specifically want to ask you on those revokements. I want to ask you on your regular visits, and then I certainly want to ask from you. Let me just quickly see here. My apologies. I'm just going through my stuff now. Oh, first of all, those conveyances that you've mentioned in the first report, if I understand it correctly, that is, for instance, where Botswana would apply for a permit to transport munitions, say, for instance, from Durban Harbour to Gaborone. If I understand that correctly, or Swaziland would do that. We are aware of hardware and munitions that was transported to Botswana from Namibia. Is it of no concern that there are 0 last year, first quarter, and 0 this quarter. Doesn't that indicate to a reason why clearly they don't want to use our facilities anymore, but is clearly using Walfish Bay and coming through that area and coming from Maputo straight to Swaziland and not via Durban anymore? Have you identified that? Because clearly there seems to be something going on, and it seems like there's economic opportunities and even revenue that we are missing out. And I'm just very concerned that that might have an indication of more problems. I specifically just want to ask you your comparisons of the 2 years in terms of applications and permits. If my information is correct, many of those applications was applications for A and B category munitions. Now, if no permits has been issued to actually load that munition, it means that there's a huge difference between the approval of contracts, approval of export permits, and the actual issuing or letting them go on to actually load and transport those munitions. That seems to have a major impact on our defense industry. And I don't know whether you have discussed that with the industry players, but that is information that I've got straight from the defense industry. And that seems to be a disjunction occurring at the moment between them that is not allowed to export and obviously the whole drive to stimulate the defense industry from your side, from our side, and from government side. But if they can't load, then obviously there's no business and there's no economy. And then we might lose business to China and India and that companies. Chairperson, I will stick with this at the moment. And if there are more questions, then I might ask you towards the end. Thank you very much.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Mr. Murray. Mr. Raider.
Chair, thank you very much, Chair. I've been well covered by Mr. Murray. I think he's touched on the things. I do think that the non-defense of that matter needs to be taken further. But yeah, Mr. Murray has covered that point well. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Just to add to this court case issue that the 3 colleagues have raised, that was part A of the case. And part B of the case will be the open secret would ask for a court order setting aside the decision by the NCACC to grant the permits. And now just tell us where is it at? Have you appealed? I think I heard something to that effect that you have appealed, but the information is that you did not turn up in court. You did not file opposing papers, and you also did not turn up in court, despite having exchanged, papers between yourselves and the open secret. Just tell us why it looks as though you dropped the ball, and now risking exposing information that is protected by our legislation. Can you just come clear on the matter? Over to you, sir. Thanks.
Joint chairs and committee. I hope I remember everything. I've been making.
Can I
copious notes on the
no,
side?
Advocate, can I do this? Can I
yes.
do
yes.
amnesty? You can switch off your video so that your line is really unstable with the video on. So, all right. Are you fine now?
Okay.
I'm saying you can switch off your
Okay.
right
Is
now.
it better?
I think it's
Yeah,
a
I
bit.
don't know. Is it better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes,
now-
definitely.
Hello?
definitely.
Yes, we
My
can hear
video
you.
is off now.
Yes, we
It's
can
a
hear
bit
you.
better. Joint chairs and committee members, I will attempt to be as perhaps sequential in how I will tackle this matter. Not in order of importance, but I must cover the aspects of whatever the questions were. Chair Chabeleng asked on what is the status of the end use permits or end user certificates and the problems that industry has and all that. I think the committee would agree that we dealt with that matter effectively last year, where in June 2020, an amendment was gazetted, wherein the aspect or the portion that was found to be contentious was actually changed. I therefore do not know any entity or country that is still battling with the provisions that are in the end user certificate. I take it that perhaps it covers that aspect when it comes to the end user certificate, and some countries not being happy with it. If I perhaps could lump that to the question that was asked earlier on around the usage of Walvis Bay instead of our ports and all that. We actually have had a look into that, other than saying it is not the stringency or otherwise of our regulations when it comes to these permits being applied for and also being granted. It could, however, be a decision that is beyond the NCACC when it comes to the accessibility of our harbors and the turnaround that is actually enjoyed by those ships that dock in order to offload, and terms and conditions that are attendant to that. I will not try and bring in Corona into that aspect, but I'm confident that yes, this represents perhaps a loss of income, but it is a matter that may not be located inside the NCACC in terms of either our regulations that have been very tough and difficult to actually comply with. I trust that I've actually responded to that effectively. Now, when it comes to the UAE and Saudi Arabia, the committee is aware and is concerned as well, because our defense industry is heavily dependent on exports to those countries. So essentially, if one were to look at the report that I've given today for Q1, it actually indicates that permits are actually being issued for those countries, and they are actually being issued for categories C and G. Those also have value. I did indicate, committee, that both Saudi Arabia and the UAE, if you look at category A and B, as we speak now, it is just above 3.5 billion. But I've also indicated that the NCACC is working at finalizing a document to be discussed in cabinet in order to manage this matter, because we also have to be cognizant of the concerns that are actually being raised and how best to manage it, which means it is important that we do not send a negative message to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, almost like we are sanctioning them, because South Africa only subscribes to sanctions that are actually emanating from the United Nations Security Council. But we also have to be aware of the domestic agenda and some of the concerns that are there. So essentially, there must be a way wherein both the countries at a sovereign level are in engagement with South Africa, and there is concept acceptance of what needs to be done in order to manage this. Because if South African material is essentially actually being diverted, it is a concern. It actually impacts us negatively in terms of our own standing, in terms of human rights and peace and security around the world. So I express the confidence that we will actually be able to resolve this matter as soon as this document has actually been tabled and discussed and outcomes have actually come out of cabinet. But it is actually not correct to say there are no approvals that are actually going through, both for those countries, including Turkey. I can state that categorically. Yes, the frustration is high if one looks at the fact that certain companies are saying, but our category A and B are actually ready to be shipped. Why are we not getting authorization? But we must take into account that we are being informed by our own intelligence entities, and they're raising concerns where they are, and the committee cannot not consider that as part of its decision making. The aspect in relation to the very same matter is that we have to help the industry not to fold or companies to find themselves in dire straits. I'm engaging both the task team that is from the industry itself, but as well as their board members, because we all agreed that not only because of the litigation that has come, but for all the challenges that are there, that there needs to be better coordination and closeness in terms of interaction in order to arrive at solutions for these matters. I can inform the committee that there are letters that have been written by the industry association and individual companies in relation to this. Mr. Barre raised the issue which is concerning industry as well, which also should concern yourselves, and that is, we have actually submitted as a result of the court order, not information that would compromise industry or the entities that hold those permits. I am on record that we have released only names of companies that have those permits and a contact person. When I engage industry, for instance, the complaints by the board were, why should the lowest person in my company be the one who has this summons served on them? And this is a result of how low the pickings have been from our side in terms of sharing information with the applicants as a result of them having won the court case. We are cognizant of how important it is not to share or divulge information which is critical to the industry. What I'm going to say now, committee, is beyond the scope of my mandate. But what is important and concerning from where I sit is, we ordinarily look at the litigation by open secrets, including, for instance, human rights, lawyers for human rights, as this is just litigation. But there ought to be a deeper reflection of why these actually actions are being launched, because they're essentially targeting the industry. They are actually targeting the sovereignty of this country. They are also targeting the authority of the National Conventional Arms Control to act rationally under an act of parliament. So there are things that actually ought to happen even broader than the NCACC, in my view, in order to actually get to the bottom of why we are getting this type of litigation. There is a matter that I did not share with the committee because it is still, again, at the higher level, where another entity was making inquiry. I want to share that comment because it is still not at litigation. We're still at engaging. But the question then ought to be asked, why are we having now NGOs thinking or believing that they have the wherewithal, if I can put it that way, to begin to actually challenge the authority of the state in granting rationally thought through and a mechanical or mechanized process that is in place that has stood favorably over the years, perhaps to the envy of other countries, that there is an NCACC. So it is actually concerning the committee itself. The chair said, yeah, they've seen me, I've actually aged, I've grayed. Yeah, I have grayed because of all these things that I actually in my in-plate or inbox, because my in-trade, because I have to deal with those things and to deal with the industry that says, but what then is going to happen? What is going to happen? What is going to happen? And I give them the indication of what's going to happen based on my interaction with the Office of the State Attorney, as well as the Senior Counsel. I've also agreed that one of the person who is in the task team can form part of the delegation whenever we meet the Office of the State Attorney, as well as the Senior Counsel, in order for them to report correctly to industry and not through our office, because it actually takes the burden of my office to be engaging broadly with the industry, in that representative then becomes the eyes and the ears of industry, because we cannot not defend this matter and actually ensure that we keep the integrity of this process that we have been managing so far where it's supposed to be, and not have any interferences that emanate from NGOs and other parties that seek to undermine both our industry and also the national regulator. Now, I had hoped that SecDev is actually logged on, but I don't see that she is logged on. Because the matter of dropping the ball would have been best addressed by SecDev in the following. The NCACC and I, being head of secretariat, are fully funded by the Department of Defense, including this matter where we would actually have had this litigation launched and defended properly by the Department of Defense. They have a litigation unit in the Department of Defense, and that is essentially where the ball was dropped. So we don't have a unit inside the NCACC that actually deals with this. So I, as complainant, or I, as the person who's impacted, rushed to the Department of Defense litigation unit to say, here is the matter, can we actually be assisted? Clearly pointing out that the first defendant is the chair, but also second defendant is Minister of Defense, then Minister Mapisa Ngakul. So there ought to have been urgency and an interest in them to make sure that this actually is defended up to the hill. It is sad to say that they did drop the ball, but we're in the process now of actually assailing the very first Part A decision in order to actually seek to rescind that court decision. I trust that I've covered all aspects of this committee members, but I stand to be corrected.
Yes, no, thank you very much. You have not addressed the Part B application, which will have the effect of setting aside the decision of the NCACC. I'm raising this point because, I mean, over the last 5 years, about 30%, let me say 35% of all controlled items exported from South Africa went to Saudi Arabia and and the UAE. So they're an important trading partner, and that you see a court decision that you know, which was not opposed, which has an impact of setting aside your decision, may have an effect on the on trade and business of the of those defense what's called defense producers or traders. I don't know what is the impact of. Have you gone through the Part B of the application? If yes, what is the decision? If no, what is the position? Are you filing papers to oppose the matter now, as it were? Because you can't just leave it at that.
May I respond?
Yes, you may.
Yes, we have filed papers, joint chairs in the committee in relation to Part B, because the particulars actually have been provided in the notice of motion that was saved on the 14th of June. But I've also indicated that part of the action now is still to go to Part 1 and seek to actually annul the draft order that seeks further information as compared to what we actually have given them. Because it also says it wants the record of proceedings, and that is minutes of the NCACC when discussing essentially the authorization of these payments. It is something that is not actually acceptable. And this is what we actually have to defend, because essentially it is attacking who or what the NCACC is. It is the national regulator on behalf of South Africa. So it ought not to be taken lying down. Now, the aspect in relation to whether we were helped on time or not by the Department of Defense is now, I don't want to call it water under the bridge, but the current engagement that I have with the Office of the State Attorney and Senior Counsel gives me comfort that we are actually making headway, in particular with Part B. Because committee, when Part A was launched, it was just the week, and it was launched on what?
We lost him. We lost him.
Yeah, we lost him. Yes. Hi.
And it was really the critical aspect of the case.
Chairperson, if I can just maybe while we're waiting for Advocate Gila to come back, what is of a concern to me is that somewhere someone dropped the ball. Either it's at the NCACC or it's at the DOD, and we obviously need to know who and why. I obviously are very scared of a situation of them pointing fingers at each other. And we actually need to work as a group. And I mean, that is a serious allegation to any organization and to any department, and especially with regards to arms exports. This is, and I've got no doubt in my mind that the groups like Open Secrets, it's not about the country's integrity and protection of South Africa. It's about their own objectives. It's about their own drives and own issues and own agenda points, which is not that of the country necessarily. So this is very serious. Yeah, and remember, it's only my information. It's also Turkey. So it's Turkey, it's Saudi Arabia, and it's United Arab Emirates. Those are the three countries to which large munition exporters and manufacturers in South Africa, since beginning of this year, couldn't export a single ton of munition because it's all obviously categories A and B. And if my information is correct from the industry, there was an investigation by the department, and they have found that UAE and Turkey has got no involvement in Yemen. So there's no reason why not to export, allow them to export. But in the meantime, those are major consignments that cannot be loaded, and those countries will not wait forever for us to ship those munitions. They will go to China, as they've already indicated. They want to stay here because they come a long way with these entities and companies, and somehow we have to try to protect what is valuable for South Africa as well. So it's also Turkey. It's also Turkey that is impacted. You know, Chairperson, the one thing that I want to ask Advocate Jelly as well, we have got the end user certificate for a specific purpose. If there are prima facie evidence of a buyer.
So you are asking questions, I guess, follow-up questions.
Yeah.
When he's not on the platform to.
Yeah, but I'm just sharing my thoughts with you at this stage. Because these things are the things that we must think about going forward. Yeah, I get carried away about these things. It's concern of me.
No, my difficulty with that,
I understand.
You'll have to repeat it.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, because you need them to comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Critical matters. All right, let's just do this, and let's agenda this issue, and quickly go to the program. Okay. I want to run it past you, and and whilst we
wait for.
Yeah, waiting for him to come back. All right, colleagues, I'm sorry to do this. Forced by the circumstances. Today, we are dealing with those matters that are on day one of the term. So that is under the bridge, is what under the bridge. Then day two is a follow-up with DOD on RAMP and one military hospital. And we thought we should just have a day set aside the whole meeting time on this item because it's
very important.
We thought we invited Public Works. Is it the same meeting that we have invited Public Works to attend, Pat, or is not the same meeting? I know we invited Public Works to deal with the fence, with the borderline buildings and all that. Or there it is. Sorry, I'm mixing issues. So firstly is to have DOD on RAMP, and then on the 9th, it's a briefing by the minister on the implementation of the recommendation of the Defence Force Service Commission. So this matter was on the agenda for last week and is now carried over to this week. And then 2 is briefing by the DFSC on its 2020 annual activity report and follow up on related matters. Again, it was on the agenda for last week, and but because we postponed it, so it's a carryover. And then there's the third item is the briefing by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure on the upgrading of section headquarter buildings for SNDF border deployment, as well as the border fence. That fence that we paid over 40 million and which we found it almost, you know, a quarter of it, quarter to half.
Yeah, nothing of value.
Not really nothing of value. Right, and then we'll deal with the outstanding meetings. And then on the 16th, it's a symposium of succession planning with invited academics. Can you go down? And then on the 23rd is operational status update on the status of the ongoing SNDF mission, and then the follow-up on matters and the past meetings. And then that's the last meeting. Pat, we are back in October, but we are not scheduling any meeting in October because it's dedicated to a budget, and is the portfolio committee that will be busy taking presentations from the AG, I think in the first week of October, and right through to the second week of October, when we close. No, it's fine. I have no problem with not.
Chairperson, just one point on the previous slide on the 9th. You will recall we will now have that oversight the 6th to the 9th. So it all depends on if it's the normal way of traveling and the time of traveling. Then I will not be at home yet at 6 o'clock to attend this meeting. I will probably only arrive in Cape Town, and then it's still about 2-hour drive home.
Okay.
So
all right. No. So I will attend to the 9th. Maybe we push items of the 9th to the 16th, and leave the 9th clear for the reasons that would be on a study oversight trip. But no, it's fine. Let's play a wait and see. I've taken note of what you're saying, Mr. Murray. That is if the oversight visit goes ahead, then I have to review this one.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Chairperson,
Right.
I see Advocate Jelly is now back on the platform.
It's now back on the platform. All right, colleagues. So just look at this. You may want us to defer a discussion on them.
Yeah.
But I will bring it back so that we finish the item. Please be applying your mind on it. These are not new issues, are old issues, except one, but we are just bringing them back to conclude them, to finalize the discussion on them. All right, colleagues, let's go back to the item that and Advocate Jelle is back. You may then take off, drop the agenda. Advocate Jelle, welcome back. And you are still, I know you're still dealing with this critical part of Part A and Part B, and that you are challenging part of, you're appealing the court decision in relation to part of the court order or orders, and then also opposing Part B application. Over to you.
Advocate Jelly is muted.
Advocate Jelle, can you?
Hello?
Yes, please unmute.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. Welcome back.
Okay. As indicated earlier, yes, we have actually launched papers to deal with Part B, which is to formulate a response to when that Part B is launched to revoke these applications. But the brief, both to our attorney of record, that is the one from the State Attorney's Office, including senior counsel, is to also assail part 1 in terms of revoking or rescission of that draft order or decision of the court. Because the aspects related to that, the matter was not ventilated. The merits of the matter was actually not, it was a default judgment because of papers that were not filed in time. So we actually believe there is a strong case to actually have part A, the first draft order and its decision actually be annulled. And I'm comfortable that we're actually working very close with the Office of the State Attorney, who's our attorney of record, as well as the senior counsel, so appointed by the State Attorney's Office.
No, it's fine.
Over to you, Chair.
No, thank you very much. And Mr. Mara, you wanted to have a follow-up. If you could just be on the follow-up, Mr.
Punctual. Okay. Advocate Jerry, thank you very much. Just the one thing that I want to make clear, the default judgment is not to nullify the permits that the NCACC has issued. That default judgment, if I understand you correctly, is only for the information of the and the list of the companies that has done exports over the last year or couple of years. If I understand correctly, that is the default judgment that must now be turned over.
Yeah, it's that plus the minutes, the records of sittings, which carry the information, what called the protected information as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's very, very important. So Chairperson, we will probably need from the Secretary of Defense to come and tell us their side of the story, why they didn't file for opposition in that case. Advocate Jele, you have only referred basically to Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. I understand that it's also Turkey, exports to Turkey by large manufacturers of then category A and B that is not allowed to ship at the moment to Turkey. So it's Turkey, United Arab Emirates, and then Saudi Arabia. I just wanted to get feedback from you with regards to the indication that I've received that UAE has actually been clear that there's no indication that they are still involved in Yemen, and that exports should actually proceed to them. Then also on the end user certificate, obviously, if you have got any prima facie evidence of possible transgressions by end users, then you would start the process of the end user certificate. Has any process been started to say that we need to do an investigation to verify certain things in obviously those 3 countries? Because if not, how do we justify not shipping at least to the UAE and to Turkey? And it seems like this Saudi Arabia is the more, the country of concern at this stage. So I just want to know that. And then just to go back in terms of your submission, I have seen that to Mozambique, and that links to your first point about exports of munition and the DAG group and things like that in Mozambique. I see in the report of the quarter there was 2 attack helicopters approved. The export of 2 attack helicopters to Mozambique. I don't know if you can give us more information, but was that the 2 helicopters by Paramount, or was that other helicopters to private companies or to the government? That's quite important because that's linked to your point about the ammunition that is without permits. Then on the IT, I just wanted to find out from you the new IT system that will run parallel with the old system. Is that purely for online applications for approval for contracts and an online application for approval of export permits? Or will there also be some categories, maybe those A and B not, but C, D, and E, and F maybe, where there will be online applications being granted online as well? maybe if you can just give us more information on that IT system, because that is also crucial for us stimulating the defense industry and bigger trade abroad. Thank you very much, Chair.
All right. So thank you very much. Let me just look on the board, see who else has his hand up or her hand up. All right. So this was the last. Mr. Ryder, is your hand up? All right.
It is indeed, Chair.
Yes, please do, because we want. I want us to close now. All right. You're the last person on this matter. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I regret that I'm going to take us a little bit back because honestly, the more I'm hearing about this legal matter and the fact that it wasn't defended, the more I'm realizing that this is now leading to massive complications. But not only that, it's leading to a lot of expenses. And of course, now we have to fight the matter in court and on the back foot. And I really think that there needs to be some serious accountability from SecDef to let us know exactly how this happened and where is that fruitless and wasteful expenditure going to vest? Is it going to be with the committee or is it going to be with the Defense Department? Because frankly, it seems to me like the committee has, well, they say that they're not to blame, but I think we need SecDef to give their side of the story and tell us, who slipped up, because there's a cost related to this, and it's going to be a substantial cost. And in addition to the fact that there's reputational damage to the committee, because now they've had to give out information they shouldn't have had to, and yeah, it's very, very, very concerning that something like this happens. I mean, the committee is a creature of statute. They must comply with the law. The ball's been dropped. This is inexcusable. I really think we need to have an answer on this, and not when next we meet with the committee, but SecDef needs to come and give account soon. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Over to you, Mr. Abdul.
Joint Chairs, committee members, my responses are as follows. If I were to start at the end, the IT system is a fully digitized system, which is going to enable us to actually move away completely from a paper-driven system. I've indicated earlier that even the review departments would now link onto this system using equipment that would be offered by the NCACC, but being based at their respective buildings or departments in order to operate therefrom. It ought to therefore improve the turnaround times in terms of both applications that we would have received as a secretariat, what we then circulate through to them, which is still done through paper today and through envelopes and other sealed documents that must each be delivered by our messenger to the respective department. It would also improve how we compile responses that are then uploaded for meetings in terms of approval, both at scrutiny committee as well as to the NCACC. It is my hope that once the system is therefore then fully operational, that it would also help stimulate and help with the turnaround of the defense industry. Now, going back to the matter that was raised earlier on about Turkey also having had a backlog, it is indeed true that there is also the placement under consideration by the committee while they're busy with deliberations, but only for category A and B. But everything else, both of really for all three countries, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and the UAE, are actually being authorized. I've highlighted Saudi Arabia and the UAE partly because their value is very high compared to that of Turkey. It is not meaning that Turkey is not significant. But as I indicated earlier on committee, the NCACC is seized with this matter to ensure that it actually gets resolution. Hence, this escalation of this matter into cabinet for a discussion that actually be a sustainable solution on how to approach this matter. It is important that we don't lose these trading partners who we have actually built a rapport where we supply niche equipment or have been supplying niche equipment all over the years. And there is a market that was actually developed that needs to be defended such that it keeps the industry sustainable. Because if it doesn't do that, then the jobs, the foreign exchange that would be earned by these exports would be lost. And South Africa can ill afford that as we speak, that they actually would not be in a position to can actually export. So I speak on behalf of the committee to say the committee is not lying idle and saying our hands are tied, we're not doing anything. In fact, the opposite is true, because they want to ensure that this is done on a sustainable basis, but it is also done with partners who understand the domestic agenda, that it is important that that which they receive from us is not actually given to non-state actors or third parties who then engage in, whether you want to call them tribalistic or regional or fights that actually occur in the areas where they actually have jurisdiction. The part of the Van Dyke or the helicopters that have been indicated to have been supplied to Mozambique, yes, indeed, I can confirm it is those attack helicopters. But as I've indicated, committee, transfers that are authorized by the NCACC are on behalf of the country, of the government. So they're actually sovereign transfers. They are from one government to the other. We therefore do not envisage that when such transfers have occurred, that the recipient country would then violate that undertaking, both the spirit and the letter, and then spirit their equipment that they would have received and let it be driven or used by non-state actors. It is a serious violation. But there is nothing that has come forth that proves that. Hence, there's not been any means to then begin that, where you actually say to your counterpart at a collegial level, that is country to country, we are actually concerned by what we have, which is verified that this is essentially what you have done, which is in violation of the spirit and the letter. It is important, committee, that when that happens, it is done on grounded facts, because South Africa cannot do that and embarrass itself when they actually go and accuse another country who's supposed to be friendly to us and who's supposed to be our trading partner and even an ally, by actually having unsubstantiated claims. I think I'll rest my case then.
No, all right, colleagues. No, thank you very much. I would want to end it at this. It's a matter that will remain seized with. We will be following the case as it goes to court, because indeed we cannot afford losing these orders on the basis of some people who have some agenda that doesn't resonate with the interest of the country. I don't know what is it that they want in the whole thing, but they also need to be open about it. They also need to be open about their intentions. They're an open secret, but they must be open about their own intentions as well. So we'll be following the matter with a keen interest. With that, thank you very much, Advocate Jerry. You can see this time around the discussions were much more robust, but more and substantive as well, because of the information that you placed on the table. And if we can keep this spirit, and we'll be happy, because we're now starting to look at the defense industry's contribution in the economy of South Africa. And so not just as a tick box, what you call tick box exercise, this, that, and so on. Is the industry stable? Is the industry growing? Because its growth means more jobs. Its growth means more revenue for the country. And so we really have want this industry to be protected, like we protect all under industries that contribute into the economy of this country. We can't wash our hands on it or damage it, because it's easy for these guys to relocate and do and produce and manufacture in other countries, in which case create jobs and grow the economies of those countries. So we must protect the goose that lays the golden egg. It's only when they do wrong things that we must take them to task. For now, we have not seen any signs of impropriety as it were. All right, thank you very much, Advocate Jele. We want to leave it at that for now. You are excused.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
And committee.
Thank you so much. Colleagues, let's go back to the agenda, to the program of the week. And I know it's a bad day or evening for most members. Thabo Motle was kicked out. Honorable Raider, same thing. Honorable Nkosi, same thing. And Chabeling also had a bit of challenges with his system, system as well. So I don't know. I hope we still have the quorum. But colleagues, whatever happens, I will bring this one back next week. But just look at what is on the agenda for next week, and at least the following week, the 2nd and the 9th. So those are the two matters. But of course, the 9th will be reviewed depending on the program of the Portfolio Committee on Defense, in which case it will be moved to the 16th. All right, let's leave it at this for now. Pat will bring it back next week to finalize it. All right, are you happy with that, Pat? At least we have 2 weeks of this thing, of the program. So we'll discuss other matters offline. All right, you may take that. You may take this one down. All right, minutes. Let's look at the minutes. How many sets, Pat?
2, Chair.
Oh, 2. Not bad. Not bad. Right. This is the attendance. Gone. Bring it back, please. It's disappeared. Right. So, okay, you can move it up so that people can see the record for attendance, right? Okay, so here, all right. So, okay. We had, all right, so we reported on our meeting with the JCPS cluster. Just an update on this matter. It has since transpired that the inquiry will go ahead, but not involving all other JSPS, what you call cluster committees. It's going to be driven by the police the Portfolio Committee on Police, and in cooperation with the Select Committee on Police on the NCOP. So we leave it to them, so we can leave it at that for now. So, all right, let's go down. All right, so it's about so we adopted our report on the oversight visit to Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. And all right, and then, okay, go down. And then we made decisions on it. All right, go down. And then we adopted those minutes. Colleagues, is this the true reflection? Firstly, are there any corrections that you may want may want effected? Let me just look at on the board. Any corrections, colleagues?
Nothing from my side, sir.
Nothing from my side. Right, can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
I move.
And can he move? And Ethel, you also out, and Ethel Kosi seconds. Welcome back. She too.
Thank you very much, Chair.
I see, Chair, your son is also back. I see your son is also back.
I've never gone out. I've been here. I didn't go out. It's just that I wanted to move.
No, he's always there.
Yeah, I've never moved.
He was there. He was underground. All right. Okay, let's do the second minutes. This is the second minutes, and all right, this is the attendance. I hope you are not omitted by any mistake, sorry, and then go down. All right, go down. Oh, I see. This was the presentation on the. Is a presentation on the letter from the president by the minister. Okay, go down. And then the actual presentation by the CJ Ops, go down.
Chairperson, you will recall this is the Mozambique deployment specifically.
Yes, Mozambique deployment, yes, sir. You are right. Yeah. And then there was discussion. Go down. And the responses by the minister. I remember that this discussion, go down. And the responses by the CJ Ops, all right, go down. And then again by the minister. And then by the CJ Ops. Yeah, quite detailed there. And then we adjourned at 8. And colleagues, are there any changes? Sorry, corrections?
Chairperson, not from my side, just a compliment again to our staff, detailed reports. It's fantastic to have it so well and thoroughly. I have no problem.
Thank you very much. And the mover?
Mafanya?
Sorry, Miss Kosi.
Good boy, huh?
Yeah, Chair. Thank you very much, Chair. I want to propose that we move for the minute as true reflection of what we have discussed on that day. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll second, Chair.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Can you switch off the mic? Can you mute, please? I think there's Barbara's.
Yeah. I move, Chair. I second, Chair.
All right. Okay. So no. Mafanya moved, and then Miss Kosi seconded. All right.
It's Women's Month. It's Women's Month.
Oh,
you know.
I can see that. Yeah. And okay. Right, colleagues. I think we are done. Is anything, Pat? Oh yes.
Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
I would like we must also consider the issue of visiting the Department of Military Veterans, DMV. People have never been paid for their dependent, and is a problem at the department, that department. Can we arrange as we been arranging before COVID-19? People are suffering. I'm talking about the military veterans and their dependents. I thank you, Chair.
Okay. No, you are right. You know what Mr. Musumai is saying that, you see, I know the item, it's we have 2 weeks, 2 weeks in succession set aside for our engagement with the Department of Military Veterans. I can't remember when exactly, but in the month, I think next week and that other week.
Your reception is so bad in that.
So, by the way, maybe he said, Mr. Masomai says, at some point we must bring the matter on the agenda of the JSC so that they too can have a contribution. Now we'll look at that, Mr. Masomai. You are right, and I will find a way so that you also are on board on matters. It's either we invite you to come that side, but we'll see how we handle it. All right. Okay, colleagues, I don't see any other hand on the thing. Let me thank all of you for your contribution tonight, and then say goodbye, good evening to all of you, and the meeting started.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Good night,
Good
Nkosi.
evening to all of you.
Good night, Bartlett.
Hello, Mfamayi.